Welcome back to the reading for Activity 3, Reproduction, on page 16. Sexual reproduction. While some animals can reproduce asexually and sexually, humans and many other animals can only reproduce sexually. An offspring produced by sexual reproduction inherits traits from two parents, not one. I'm going to highlight that because that is a very important statement and something that really sets apart sexual reproduction from asexual reproduction is having two parents. You are not a perfect copy of either of your parents. You also are not a perfect blend of your parents' traits. What determines which traits you get from each parent? Sexual reproduction occurs when a tiny sperm cell produced by a male unites with an egg cell produced by a female, as shown on the next page. Each of these cells, called sex cells, has only one set of genes. This means the sex cells have half the number of genes present in the rest of the organism's body cells. The union of the sperm and the egg is called fertilization. And let's take a look at the picture they're talking about. So this is, these aren't the actual colors, but there we have a microscopic image of a sperm cell and an egg cell. And I'm going to write half on each of them because each of them contains only half of the DNA or genetic information needed to make the full living organism. And hopefully you know by now what 1/2 plus 1/2 equals. Let's keep reading. The cell that results from fertilization will have two copies of every gene, with one set of genes from the egg and one set of genes from the sperm. That's another great statement that I am going to highlight. Because genes help to determine traits, sexual reproduction produces a new cell that develops into an individual with traits inherited from both parents. As the organism grows, the fertilized egg produces more cells that have two sets of genes and are genetically identical to that fertilized egg. This new individual will be different from each of its biological parents. Also, because no two sperm or egg cells contain exactly the same genetic information, no two offspring produced by the same parents are identical. A unique set of inherited genes causes a unique set of inherited traits in each sexually produced offspring of the same two parents. There is an exception to the last statement, identical twins. Identical twins result when one fertilized egg splits before beginning to grow and develop. The two eggs then become two genetically identical offspring or children. Only one fertilization occurs, but two organisms are produced. In the case of fraternal twins, which is non-identical twins, that is when a female's body releases two separate eggs, and those two separate eggs are fertilized by two separate sperm cells. Asexual and sexual reproduction are summed up in the table below. Let's look at this for a moment. So asexual reproduction has one parent, and the offspring are clones and are identical to that parent. Sexual reproduction has two parents, where the offspring inherits traits from both parents. Stop to think 3. Fraternal twins result when two eggs are released at the same time, are both fertilized by different sperm cells, and both develop into offspring. This is very common in dogs and cats. That's why they have so many babies at one time. Why are identical twins much more similar than fraternal twins? You can pause the video if you want to take a moment to think about this. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to think. Identical twins is the same genetic information. For identical twins, it is one egg cell and one sperm cell. For fraternal twins, you have two egg cells and two sperm cells. And both of them, and they're all unique. So their genes are going to be a little bit different. Cloning. In nature, a clone is an offspring produced by asexual reproduction. Yet you've probably heard the term cloning used to describe a process that produces a sheep or other animal identical to its one parent. How can this be possible, given that sheep, like humans, always have two parents? Remember, mammals never reproduce asexually. Scientists have now produced certain organisms artificially, like fake, through a type of asexual reproduction. Consider the cloning of a sheep, illustrated in the figure on the next page. The part of the cell that contains the genes, the nucleus, is removed from one of the cells of the sheep's body. This nucleus is placed into an egg cell whose nucleus has already been removed. If this artificially fertilized egg develops in a womb, it grows into a sheep that is genetically identical to the sheep that its nucleus came from. It is therefore a clone of that sheep. That's wild. So here we can see the adult sheep to be cloned. We have a body cell from that sheep. Then scientists can actually take the nucleus out of that cell and then put it into an egg cell. And the egg cell has all the information it needs to grow a whole organism. Sperm cells don't really help with it growing. Sperm cells just help give more information. That's why a sperm cell is not needed in this case. Fascinating. Stop to think 4. How is a cloned animal, such as a sheep, different from an identical twin? Why don't you pause the video to think about that for a moment? I really hope you pause the video. Let's think about this. So a cloned animal, there is no sperm cell. It is taking a nucleus out of an existing cell. That definitely does not happen naturally with sexual reproduction. With sexual reproduction, you just have an egg cell and a sperm cell that combine. With a cloned animal like the sheep, you take a body cell, take the nucleus out, and put that nucleus in an egg cell. There are definitely some differences there. And that brings us to our analysis questions. We will go over them together in class, especially numbers 2 and 3, that Venn diagram. Oh, and there's a little sneak peek right there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this reading and learning about living things and how life carries on.